Welcome to A Call to Action, a series presented by Great Eastern Radio and Brattleboro Community Television. We're covering all kinds of topics from stay-at-home orders to how the community is approaching and dealing with the pandemic. Today, we're talking with Chief of Police Mike Fitzgerald, Fire Chief Mike Bucossi, Director of Public Works Steve Barrett. I'm Peter Fish-Case. Gentlemen, welcome to A Call to Action.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I imagine all of you are keeping busy. Let me just start out right now. I mean, protocols are different. Well, with the exception of, I guess, our chiefs, your protocols are different, but they don't always necessarily get to stay in place. Chief Fitzgerald, let's start with you. I mean, how is the police department dealing with these day-to-day issues?
Well, we're still, first and foremost, I mean, we're still fully staffed. We're still 24/7 and fully operational. I would say the biggest change is to our responses, where before we would do face-to-face interactions with people, and now we're using more remote means when we can to answer complaints. And that would be either phone calls, emails, or other electronic means.
Okay. All right. Chief Bucossi?
So our day-to-day operations, we've tried to keep them pretty much the same. We approach situations with much more caution today than we did a couple of months ago. Our normal support services, inspections and things like that have been postponed until further notice. Right now, we're hoping to pick them up again the 1st of June. We'll see what happens there. And like the police department, we're fully staffed. We've been lucky. Everybody has stayed healthy, and we continue to serve the community just like we did before this started.
Okay, good to know. Steve, how has this impacted Public Works?
Well, it's impacted in various ways. Of course, we're in charge of the water, drinking water, the wastewater, the highway, a maintenance division, and distribution system. So primarily what we've done is we've cut our staff in half and had half the employees more on a standby basis. Our fear was that if one operator, for instance, had to be quarantined, then it would take all the operators out if they're all working together. Oh. So that has worked quite nicely. They've kind of altered. They're on standby. You know how crazy the weather's been. We had half the highway on standby, and we had a snowstorm. So we had to bring those folks in. So we've just been kind of moving, it's a moving target for us, but the operations are there. The highway's more critical or essential services that need to be provided, potholes and things of that nature. So that's what we've been doing.
Okay. So the analogy I keep using around this whole entire pandemic is that we're all trying to fix the car while it's moving. I think that's appropriate because the things that we put into place today can very much change tomorrow. And then we have to kind of retool. I'll put this out to both the chiefs. Have you guys found that to be the case with your individual departments, the police department, the fire department?
Well, I can start with that. And when this first started, the guidance coming down from both CDC and the state of Vermont changed, if not daily, every other day. And sometimes we were seeing changes a couple times a day. So all of the protocol that we were pushing out to staff, it was fast and furious for a while. Obviously, this was an unknown disease, an unknown virus, and the more they learned, the more they changed. But I think over the last 3 weeks or so, things are stabilized, and we feel pretty comfortable about where we're sitting today.
Okay. Chief Fitzgerald?
I would agree a lot with what Chief Bucossi just said. In the beginning, it was absolutely fast and furious. But I'd like to point out, the first responder field, we're used to tough situations. We're used to thinking on our feet. And being, in disasters. You don't have books that you can refer to. You just have to refer to on your training. You have to refer to your experience. And, our staffs, and I can speak for all the first responders for Brattleboro and feel confidently saying this, that we're extremely competent and professional at what we do. So a lot of the policies were changed in the beginning, and they would come down from entities that were outside of our community, either through state or federal. And trying to be in compliance with all them was a challenge in the beginning. But once we realized what the big picture was from either the Attorney General's office, the governor's office, the courts, we were able to adapt quite easily.
Okay. So let's get into the do's and don'ts during a pandemic, at least how we're sitting and the things that we know now. And Steve, maybe I could start with you. I mean, are there definitely things that you have seen popped up during this time that you just wish people would stop doing? I mean, I know there's a lot of things that we wish people would stop doing, but I mean, specific to this crisis.
Yeah, I think the wastewater has been the biggest challenge. A lot of people are using these they're called disposable wipes,
Yeah.
but they're not biodegradable. And so they're flushing all those rags down their toilet, and it's plugging their own systems along with the city mains. So we've seen that. We've had neighborhoods that plugged up. We've had homes that have plugged up, and it raised havoc also down to the wastewater treatment plant. So we really encourage people with those disposable rags to put them in the solid waste, not to flush them down the toilet, because it really has caused a lot of problems. As
Right.
far as the water supply, that has been steady. In fact, we've seen an increase in usage, which we would expect. More people are washing their hands, more showers being taken, and we can accommodate those flows no problem. So the wastewater has probably been our biggest challenge.
Okay. All right. But everything seems to be flowing, no pun intended, quite well.
Quite well, but with the exception of we've had more, a lot of unusual events where we've had neighborhoods actually plug up in homes.
Oh.
And people actually with their septic tanks that are outside the city system, they've had problems also with their septic tanks. So, you put those down a septic tank, they don't do well. They don't break down biologically.
Okay.
So we just need to encourage people not to dispose those materials down to the wastewater system, to throw them away in the solid waste.
Okay. And we're talking about wipes.
That's it.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. It's good information to get out there. Chief Bucossi, you?
I think that, overall, the behavior, especially around the community, has been really good. I think that people have listened. They've taken the precautions they should. Do I wish they'd do something a little bit different? I think that initially when the grocery stores started setting special times for the people that were more at risk, that the healthy people would have respected that. And I think that we all need to help each other and keep everybody healthy in this right now. So, I just hope we'll continue to help each other.
Right. Well, yeah, I would hope so as well. I was kind of perusing some social media for the Brattleboro Fire Department. Came across a little gem where you guys were asking people not to microwave the face masks. Is that so? Can you explain that a little bit? I just thought that was a curious thing that popped out at me.
Sure. So locally, we haven't run into the problem, but I do know that the National Fire Administration is pushing it out on social media. Ever since this whole wave of sterilizing and reusing a mask has come out, people have got rather creative, if you will, and they're putting cloth masks into the microwave, and basically what it's doing is starting a fire.
Okay.
So obviously we don't want them to do that. These cloth masks can be just washed with your regular wash, and All is good.
Okay. So no microwaving.
Don't microwave them.
All right. I think that sounded right. Sometimes, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but sometimes it just sort of amazes me as to what people do. But it's good to get the information out there. All right. Best for last, Chief Fitzgerald. I'm sure there's plenty of things out there you would rather people not be doing right now.
That is true, and I'm certainly not amazed at what people do.
Right.
But what I would wish them to do is to continue to call if they see suspicious activity. Even though our response may not be, you know, personal with them, we still are out and about. We're still patrolling the roads, and we're still looking into suspicious incidents and things of that nature. So, you know, please continue to do that. I really like what I see with the social distancing. I really like what I hear when I talk to people, their level of understanding and patience throughout this pandemic. So they're doing a lot of right, and I would just want them to continue to let us know when they see crimes or any suspicious activity, because we're still fully functional.
Well, you know, I've always believed in the resolve of Vermonters and you know their ability to deploy some common sense when it's needed. And I mean, I think you could see that with the stay-at-home protests that happened in Montpelier on Wednesday, where just basically everybody said, no, we're not doing this. This is not going to help the situation. So I think that was good. But speaking about social media, a few of the things that kind of pop up are questions that I noticed coming through my news feed, and questions like why are their trucks parked at each, and this would speak to Steve's department, why are their trucks parked at each exit, and are they allowing people across the borders, and so let's speak to that for a second. Maybe that alleviates or settles that argument. I mean, why did we see trucks parked at each exit on a random weekend, Steve?
Well, we received a lot of calls on that ourselves, and that's basically the state highway department. It's the agency of transportation, and they're representing the state, and they're counting cars that are coming and going in and out of Vermont. So they're basically doing a plate count. They're not identifying any of the license plates or calling them in. You know, if it's a Vermonter, fine, close enough, and if it's an out of state, they're just marking that down to regulate it. But we did receive a lot of calls about that. I know the police department, emergency services did too. So then we were pretty proactive and got a press release out to inform the public about that.
Right. And in that press release, what would that have covered? What would have been said in that press release for those who did?
It was just basically broke it down to explain to people this was really about monitoring, and it was being done by the state of Vermont, not the town of Brattleboro. The town of Brattleboro was not involved in that. Just so they knew, you know, it wasn't the Brattleboro Police Department, it wasn't Brattleboro Public Works that were going to block off the entrances into the state. So just to make it clear.
All right. So Chief Fitzgerald, is there are you allowed to cross the borders?
Absolutely, of course
Yeah.
you are. Yeah, and well, like Director Barrett was saying, I think that was just more of a kind of like a data driven to see how many out-of-staters were come in, and that would help them with their predictions on flattening the curve and things of that nature. But absolutely, you're more than free to travel throughout the state and interstates.
Right. Just of course respecting the fact that you know we do take our social distancing pretty seriously here. So we would want that to continue. I guess in the non-emergency situations that I guess all three of you might be involved in, I mean, have you found it possible to kind of follow the guidelines of what's expected of the citizens so far?
From the police perspective, absolutely. When we respond to some of the violations to the governor's directive, um, our philosophy and approach is to educate them, not so much as a civil or criminal enforcement aspect, just to let them know that why those directives were put in place, and it was for the betterment of everybody within the state. And I can say happily that we have been getting fantastic compliance from the citizens within Brattleboro.
That's good. Chief Bucossi, same question to you.
We're finding the same thing that the police department is. Like I said earlier, the community's been great, and sometimes people need a reminder. They aren't insulted. Matter of fact, a lot of them are quite happy that we did toss out that reminder. They know that it's for everybody's good, and right now we're just trying to get everybody through this healthy, so we can get to the other side.
Okay, Steve, you guys?
Yeah, we received, calls from contractors and such, concerned, can they go out? We did have some activity with some smaller contractors working when they really should have been quarantined, but they reacted to it quite nicely with our interactions. Just more of an educational, as the chiefs have said, just to let people know. And then people pretty much back down. There's no confrontation. Really, I think people have done a super job here in Brattleboro.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's I think that the folks here get it, and I think I was just reading an article the other day that said that as far as states that have really been able to mitigate it, we're like around number 4 on the list. So, we'll keep that thing going. Right now, the governor's orders for staying at home and for essential versus non-essential stay in place for what, about a few more weeks, correct?
Yes, May 15th.
All right. And then what happens after May 15th? Do we feel as though the governor might extend that, or is that too dangerous of a territory to weigh into?
It's really hard to tell, I'd say, at this point. Obviously, they're watching the numbers very closely. The positive tests, the deaths, they're all public on the Vermont Department of Health website, and they've truly flattened. I think we had just 2 positive tests yesterday, and the new numbers for today, they should be coming out just about now. And
Okay.
so I think that if we can stay on this trend, the governor may loosen up some of the restrictions even more come the middle of May.
Okay. Chief Fitzgerald, do you feel as though that that we'll be able to kind of stick to that guideline?
I certainly hope so, but what I caution is you can't pick a magical date and then say, okay, we're out of the woods on this. I think that it will be a gradual reopening, and with a lot of monitoring to make sure we don't get a insurgence of it to coming back. But I agree with the chief. I think May 15th, they're going to look hard at that, and then hopefully slowly just starting opening up different areas where we can integrate. I think social distancing will be around for a while, to be honest with you. But I think that you're going to see more and more the merchants being able to open up their doors.
All right. What do we think? So let's say in the perfect scenario, May 15th is that date, and social distancing. Again, I think that everybody's going to only be alleviated once we have a vaccine. That seems to be what's coming down from the CDC, and that it'll mitigate somewhat during the hotter months. But let's say we get to that date of the 15th. What businesses, what gets deemed essential after that? I mean, I don't think that we're going to just start opening up and doing concerts. So what do we think will be opening up first?
I think we all sit here with this dumbfounded look on our face.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
It's a really hard question to answer. The bigger venues that you speak of, like the concerts and the sporting events, I don't see those happening for quite a while.
Right.
And rightly so. I think that we need to just be careful with this.
Yeah, I think probably just not rushing into everything and just sort of accepting this as the new norm for right now, is where we're at. I get we've covered quite a bit, and I think we've settled some questions that might be out there. But is there anything? I guess Steve, we'll go to you first. Is there anything there that we didn't cover that you feel as though you'd like to put out?
No, just a little follow-up on your previous questions. I think the construction and the trades, that's what I'm tied to really tight here.
Yeah.
That's where they're going to open up that gate a little bit. And my understanding is the governor is supposed to do a press release today also.
Okay.
And there's a discussion about just opening that a little bit more. And I see, some of the key places are going to be with construction, where they can have distancing and things of that nature. So, and that's going to help the economy because there's a lot of jobs there. They talked about landscaping and then the construction crews and then maybe builders. And, as we've discussed, it's a whole new world. We're going to have to do things differently. Another thing I'd just like to throw in is our crews are out there. We have people that are flushing water mains at night now, and that we're approached many times by citizens if they have problems or they're concerned. We have a direct link to dispatch and can contact police and fire. So if people out there do have concerns, they see a public works vehicle, they can, yell out the window, and we can get help for them too. So we're another set of eyes and ears for the police department and the fire department. We're out there, we're very visible. So we're there to help too if people need things.
All right, that's good to know. Thank you for that. To the chiefs, anything that we may have missed that you'd like to put out there?
I would continue just to, stress slow and easy. I constantly remind my staff and my family that we are seeing, hopefully, the light at the end of the tunnel. Some restrictions are being lifted, but we also, like Chief Fitzgerald said, we don't want this to come back around and slap us in the back of the head. We don't want to see that resurgence. So we need to keep our guard up. We need to continue to be resilient and be careful.
Great, thank you. Chief Fitzgerald, we'll end with you.
Okay, I just want to remind everybody that we're still 24/7, fully functional, out and about, and our main concern is the safety for the community, and we can't do it alone. So please remember that we are there, and give us a call if you see anything suspicious, and we'll most certainly look into it.
Great. Thank you, guys. Chief, Director, thank you so much for jumping on a call to action with me today and settling some questions that folks were having out there. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.